I caught them laughing in my kitchen the first time they met. Not my son and the tutor, my wife and him. She was leaning on the counter, her hand half covering her mouth like she was trying not to laugh too loud. He was standing just a bit too close, arms crossed, smiling like he'd already made himself comfortable. And my son, Jonah, just sat at the kitchen table between them, fiddling with his pencil, like he wasn't sure if this was a math lesson or a comedy show. "This is Mr. Decker," Claire said when she saw me. Her voice jumped a little, like she hadn't expected me home that early. "He's the tutor from East Grove. He's going to help Jonah with math for a few weeks." The guy held out his hand. "Ian." He said it like we were old friends. His grip was firm, confident. I shook it, nodded. Nothing strange on the surface. Just a teacher. Just a handshake. Just a Wednesday afternoon. But it sat wrong. Not because of what he said. Not because of what he did. Because of how she looked at him. Like she already knew him. Like she wanted him to know her. It was a look I hadn't seen from her in a long time, not for me, anyway. Bright eyes, that flirty little head tilt, fingers playing with her hair like a teenager on a first date. I don't even think she realized she was doing it. Or maybe she did. I stood there a second longer than I needed to. Just watching. "Everything all right?" she asked, too casually. "Yeah," I said. "Fine." I went upstairs, loosened my tie, sat on the edge of the bed, and listened through the floorboards. Her laugh carried up like smoke through a vent. That laugh, light, open, a little too familiar for someone she just met. I told myself not to overthink it. I told myself I was tired. I told myself it was nothing. It wasn't. It was the start. The next time Ian came over, I made sure I was home. Not in the room, not hovering, just present. I was in the garage, tightening bolts on a shelf I didn't really care about. Back door cracked open, just enough to hear them talk. He had one of those smooth, teacher voices. You know, the kind, calm but confident, like he always knows the answer before the question's even finished. Claire laughed more than Jonah did. It started off small, like, "Oh, you're so funny," kind of laughs. But by week 2, she'd set out a tray of cookies. Like we were hosting a party. Like he was company, not a contract tutor we found through a parent Facebook group. "Did you bake these?" he asked her that day. I was close enough to hear it. "Store-bought," she said, "but I dressed them up." He laughed. "Well, you fooled me." Something about the way he said it. Too warm. Too personal. I walked in mid-session, holding a bottle of water I didn't need. Claire straightened up fast when she saw me. Ian looked over his shoulder, smiled, nothing weird. But her face said enough. Jonah didn't look up. He was bored, still struggling with decimals, still stuck between numbers that didn't make sense. Ian leaned over him like he cared. And maybe he did. But his eyes drifted back to Claire every chance they got. The next day, I asked her, casual as I could, "What do you think of the guy?" She blinked. "Who?" "The tutor." "Oh, he's fine. Jonah likes him." "Why?" "No reason." She kept scrolling her phone. "You're acting weird." I let it go. But here's the thing I didn't say. I've known Claire for 12 years. I know when she's lying. I know when she's hiding something. And I could feel it starting to grow, even if I didn't have proof yet. Something quiet, rotten, like a crack under paint. And it didn't stop there. 3 days later, I found out she was texting him. I wasn't snooping. Not at first. I was looking for a charger. Claire has this kitchen drawer, the kind everyone has, stuffed with receipts, expired coupons, dried-out pins, and random cords that don't go to anything we own. Her phone was face down on the counter, buzzing every few minutes while she was folding laundry in the other room. Then the screen lit up. "Ian D. 3:42 p.m. You're impossible." I don't even know what made me pick it up. I told myself it was quick. Just a glance. Not crossing a line. Not really. 5 seconds. 10, maybe. But the more I read, the heavier it felt in my hand. She had his number saved under his full name. That struck me. Not Mr. Decker. Not math tutor. Not even just Ian. It was neat, clean, intentional. I opened the thread. There wasn't much. They had clearly deleted messages, probably most of them. But what was left was enough. "Thanks again for yesterday. I needed that laugh. You're fun to talk to. I shouldn't be bothering you off hours." "You're not." And then this one. "What would your wife say about your tutoring methods?" His reply. "What would your husband say?" Then a picture she sent him. Not of her. Just a blurry close-up of the coffee mug on the kitchen counter. My mug. Something about that hit me harder than it should have, like she was sending pieces of our home to him, testing boundaries in plain sight. I put the phone down. That night, while she was cooking dinner, I asked, "So, you text Ian?" She didn't hesitate. "Sometimes." "About Jonah." "Logistics. Seems like a lot of personal stuff for just logistics." She didn't look up from the pan. "You're acting paranoid." I dropped it. But the next time Ian came over, I stayed home. I told Jonah I'd be working in the dining room, close enough to hear, but not close enough to make it obvious. And I saw it. Claire reached across him to grab a notebook and let her hand brush his forearm. Light, quick, like an accident that wasn't really one. He didn't move. He just smiled a little. It was small, easy to miss, but I didn't miss it. The next time Ian came over, I wasn't home. Claire had told me earlier that week that Jonah's session had been rescheduled from 3:30 to 5 o'clock. Just a timing thing, she said. Ian's got another student before Jonah now. I didn't question it. Not then. I was swamped at work, trying to meet a deadline, and I barely looked up from my laptop that entire day. I came home around 6, and the house was quiet. Jonah was in his room, playing Minecraft. Claire was on the couch, scrolling her phone. "How'd the session go?" I asked, hanging up my coat. She looked up casually. "Good. Ian says Jonah's improving. Still having trouble with decimals?" "A little, yeah. But he's getting it." It sounded normal. Everything sounded normal. But when I looked in the trash, I saw 2 empty soda cans and a granola bar wrapper I didn't recognize. Jonah doesn't eat those. And Claire doesn't drink that brand of soda. I only noticed because I bought the same kind a week ago and still hadn't opened them. That night, as I got Jonah ready for bed, I asked him, "So what did you work on with Ian today?" He shrugged. He helped me a little. Then I watched TV. Watched TV? During the session? He nodded. He said he had to talk to Mommy about something, so I could watch cartoons for a bit. I didn't say anything. I just froze. Where were they talking? In the kitchen, I think. I couldn't hear. I tucked him in, kissed his forehead, and walked out like nothing was wrong. But everything was wrong. That was the first time I felt something more than suspicion. It was like the air shifted, heavier, darker. I didn't have proof, but I had something worse. A gut feeling I couldn't shake. The next day, I checked our Ring camera. We only had one at the front door, facing the driveway. It wasn't much, but it recorded motion and log timestamps. I scrolled back to the day before. Ian arrived at 4:48 p.m. He didn't leave until 6:07. That was an hour and 19 minutes. Jonah's sessions were supposed to be 45 minutes. And Jonah said he'd watch cartoons for a bit. I stared at that timestamp for a long time. Then I saved the clip and sent it to my private email. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I started paying attention. It's amazing what you notice when you stop assuming the best. The way her phone was suddenly always face down. How she'd leave the room to answer certain calls, then come back smiling but pretending she wasn't. Or how she started putting on makeup before Ian came over. Not much, but enough to notice. One afternoon, I left work early without telling her, just to see. I parked a block away, came in through the side gate, and stayed in the garage, listening. They were inside already. She was laughing again. That laugh, the same one from the first day. The one that didn't sound like the Claire I knew. Not the version who reminded Jonah to chew with his mouth closed or asked me to take the trash out. This version of her giggled. She played. I waited. At exactly 5:58, I opened the back door and walked in like nothing was unusual. Claire's eyes went wide. Ian looked over his shoulder and gave a tight smile. Jonah was in the living room, half asleep with the TV on. "Oh," Claire said. "You're home early." I looked at Ian. "Session over?" He nodded, standing up. "Yeah, we just finished. Jonah did great today." "Good to hear." He grabbed his bag. Claire walked him to the door. No goodbye hug, thankfully. But her hand lingered on the doorknob after he left, just holding it for a second, like she wasn't ready to let the moment end. That night, we sat on the couch while Jonah slept. She scrolled her phone. I pretended to read. "Hey," I said. "Did Ian mention if he'd be changing times again next week?" She didn't look up. "No. Same time, I think." "What?" "Just wondering." She shrugged. You really don't like him, do you? I looked over. I don't know him. She smiled. He's harmless. There it was. The line that confirmed everything. Because no one says someone is harmless unless there's something they feel the need to defend. And Claire? She wasn't defending Jonah's math tutor. She was defending her guilt. That night I started going through our shared iCloud account. Claire didn't realize it, but some of her messages were still syncing to the iPad we kept in the family room. It wasn't dramatic. There was no naked photo, no hotel receipt, no long poetic confession. It was just a message. A short one, buried in a string of deleted conversations, missed by accident, maybe, or synced before she had the chance to erase it from everything. It read, "Are you sure he won't be home this time?" That's it. No name, no timestamp. But it was there in Claire's outgoing messages. And it was recent. The iPad doesn't lie. I stared at that sentence for 10 straight minutes, then checked Jonah's tutoring schedule again. Last Thursday, the day I worked late, Ian had been at the house from 4:50 to just past 6. Claire had told me I should stay late at the office to catch up on things. She even suggested I grab dinner after. I did, and now I knew why. That night, I watched her make dinner like nothing had happened. She hummed a song, wore her hair up like she used to when we first met. It made me sick. I couldn't eat. I just sat at the table with Jonah while he told me about his science project. She smiled the whole time, like she wasn't hiding something in plain sight. Later, when Jonah was asleep, I took the trash out and went through the outside bin. That's something I'd never done in my life, dig through our own garbage. But I needed to know, and I found it. A crumpled receipt from a wine shop on Oak Street. One bottle. Red. Expensive. Dated the same Thursday I stayed late. We didn't drink that night. Claire hadn't mentioned wine. She had bought it for someone else. For him. I didn't sleep. I barely blinked. I lay in bed next to her, eyes open, listening to the soft rise and fall of her breathing. She looked peaceful, like someone with nothing to hide. But I knew. Finally, I knew. She was cheating on me. With Jonah's tutor. In our home. While I worked late to provide for all of us, she poured wine and lied through her teeth. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just a marriage falling apart. This was a betrayal I couldn't come back from. I didn't bring it up the next day, or the day after that. Not because I was unsure, not anymore, but because I wanted her to have every opportunity to tell the truth herself, to slip, to confess, to give me even 1 ounce of honesty before I took it all away. But she didn't. Instead, Claire got better at lying, smiling more, asking me about my day, offering to pick up Jonah from school to save me time, like she was covering tracks even before I accused her of anything. The next time Ian came over, I didn't pretend to be busy. I stayed home, in plain sight, sitting on the couch, laptop open but untouched. When he walked in, Claire acted like it was business as usual. I watched them closely. This time, she didn't touch his arm. She barely looked at him. She was acting, too neutral, too careful, like someone who knew they were being watched. That's when I knew she suspected I knew. She was pulling back, just enough to create doubt, just enough to say you're imagining things, if I ever did bring it up. Classic damage control. But I wasn't imagining anything, because 2 days later, Jonah came into the kitchen with a question that broke the whole thing open. He said, "Why was Mr. Ian here on Saturday?" I froze. Saturday. I asked. "Yeah," he said. "I saw him. I was upstairs. I didn't come down." I looked at Claire. She'd been rinsing dishes. The water was still running, but her hands weren't moving. "I thought he only came on Tuesdays and Thursdays," I said slowly. She didn't turn around. "He dropped something off. A book Jonah forgot. On a Saturday." "Yeah. I don't know why it matters." I looked at Jonah. He was already digging through the pantry for snacks. Oblivious. Innocent. I wanted to scream. Instead, I walked out the front door and sat in my car with the engine off. Just breathing. Just shaking. Because now I had everything I needed. The message. The receipt. The Ring camera footage. And now Jonah, the one person she couldn't lie through. It wasn't just cheating anymore. It was an insult to my intelligence. A calculated, quiet destruction of everything we'd built, our home, our trust, our family. She thought I'd never find out. Or worse, that I'd find out and just stay quiet. But I wasn't staying quiet anymore. The next call I made was to a lawyer. I didn't storm in. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't throw anything or yell or accuse. Instead, I played it like she did, calm, patient, calculated. The lawyer I called was a recommendation from a coworker. A quiet guy, sharp eyes, flat voice. The kind of person who knows how to move through fire without making smoke. We met after work, off the clock, at a strip mall office next to a dry cleaner. Nothing dramatic, just quiet war planning. I showed him everything, the message, the receipt, the time-stamped footage, and the screenshots I'd saved from the iPad before Claire noticed I'd wiped it clean. He sat back, folded his hands, and said, "You're in a very strong position." I didn't smile. I didn't feel anything. I just nodded. We talked custody, assets, how to document without tipping her off. He gave me a checklist, told me to stay calm, stay cold. Let her keep thinking she's in control, he said. It'll work in your favor. And it did. Because Claire had no idea. She went on with her days like nothing was wrong. Picking up Jonah, setting out dinner, putting on music in the kitchen while she chopped vegetables. She even started inviting me to watch shows with her again, like we were slowly reconnecting. It was disgusting. Not just because I knew what she'd done, but because she was pretending nothing had happened. That was the part that really broke something in me. The pretending. You don't accidentally sleep with your son's tutor. You don't accidentally text him at midnight, ask him when your husband will be gone, or invite him back into the house on a Saturday when your kid's upstairs playing Minecraft. You don't accidentally pour wine and then delete the evidence. You plan that. You live in it. You choose it. Every day, every glance, every lie. So I kept planning too. I pulled every bank record, every schedule change, every tutoring payment. And then I did something that made my skin crawl. I called Ian. Blocked number. Brief. Cold. I know what's going on, I said. Don't come back to my house. He paused, then said, okay. That was it. No denial. No confusion. No asking who I was or what I was talking about. Just okay. He knew. And that was all I needed. I hung up, drove home, walked inside like nothing had happened, and kissed my son on the head while Claire stirred pasta on the stove. She looked over her shoulder and smiled. You're home early. I smiled back, but I already had the paperwork in my car. I didn't serve her the papers myself. I had them delivered on a Thursday morning, just after she dropped Jonah off at school. I watched from the corner of the street as she stepped out of the house in a hoodie and slippers, hair still tied up. She opened the front door, looked down at the envelope in her hands, then stood there frozen for a full minute before going back inside. She didn't text right away. I figured she was in shock. Around noon, it came. Can we talk about this? Not in front of lawyers. Just you and me. I didn't answer. The next morning, she showed up early at drop-off. She didn't say anything about Jonah, just stood by her car, waiting for me to come over. I didn't want it to go this far, she said. I just looked at her. She was wearing that expression she always used when she wanted to be seen as the victim, the small voice, the soft tone, the eyes that never quite met yours. You could have said something, she whispered. We could have worked through it. I wanted to laugh, but I didn't. Instead, I said, you had a long time to say something. You didn't. She blinked, just once, then nodded like she'd rehearsed this moment, but it still stung. And that was the last real conversation we had. From then on, it was just lawyers, letters, deadlines. No drama, just cold paperwork and waiting. When the court date finally came, I wasn't nervous. I'd been living in the fallout for weeks. Now I just wanted the thing finished. The courthouse was small, one of those newer buildings with plastic chairs, gray carpet, and buzzed fluorescent lights. Nothing like TV. No one yelling. Just a long hallway of hushed voices and stressed-out people in collared shirts. Claire sat across from me in the waiting area. Beige sweater, flats, no jewelry. She looked like she was going to a parent-teacher conference. She didn't even glance at me. Her lawyer showed up 5 minutes before we were called in. Young guy, clean haircut, too much cologne. We filed in. The judge was older, glasses halfway down his nose, folder already in front of him. He didn't waste time. My lawyer started laying it out, methodically, calmly, like peeling layers off a wall to show the rot behind it. First, the messages, then the synced iCloud backups, then the Ring camera footage, then the receipts, then Jonah's statement. Everything. Claire sat perfectly still, blinking slowly like she was watching it happen to someone else. Her lawyer objected to a few things. Hearsay. Irrelevant. No direct evidence of a physical relationship. But every objection just made it worse. Because this wasn't about one moment. It was about a pattern. About trust lost in 100 small ways. And finally, the judge turned to Claire. Asked her directly, "Do you dispute any of the material facts submitted in your husband's filing?" She hesitated. Her throat moved as she swallowed. Then, "No, Your Honor." That was the moment I knew it was done. The ruling didn't take long. The judge leaned back, hands folded, and glanced once more at the folder in front of him. Claire looked down at the table. I looked straight ahead. He spoke evenly. No drama in his tone. No sympathy either. Full physical custody awarded to the father. Visitation to the mother supervised. Twice a month. Subject to review after 6 months. I'd keep the house. The accounts tied to Jonah. The car Claire once called hers, but never made a payment on. Assets divided, but not equally, not after the judge saw how calculated it all was. He said the words breach of trust and pattern of deception. He didn't need to say disgusting, but it hung in the air anyway. Claire didn't argue, not even a sound. Her lawyer scribbled something down, but she didn't read it. She just sat there, shoulders slightly hunched, like she had finally run out of versions of herself to hide behind. When court adjourned, she stood slowly. I could feel her watching me as I gathered my papers. She didn't come over, didn't try to stop me, and I didn't offer her a word. No closure, no handshake, no fake, maybe one day. She lied to me, in our home, with our son in the next room, and she thought she'd get away with it. But the truth doesn't stay buried forever. Not when someone's paying attention, not when someone refuses to look away. I walked out of that courthouse lighter, not happy, not free, but done. She made her choices. And this, every inch of this, was the end she earned.